Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So, happy St. Patrick's Day. I might not be wearing green, but I did try with the green eyeshadow for the festivities. St. Patrick's Day is one of the biggest holidays in my family, so it's kind of weird that I'm not wearing green today. I'm also filming and editing and uploading this video today, hopefully. So hopefully this actually goes up on St. Patrick's Day. I just got back from vacation and just had no time between flying in, going to work right after vacation, and then filming this video. But I did really want to get this up today. So as you can tell by the title, I'm going to be talking about my vacation and some more haunted tourism. So for those of you who do not know, I recently flew out to San Francisco, spent about 5 days there, and went to 3 supposedly very haunted places, and wish to talk about them. And I will obviously be including a bunch of photos of the places that we went to next to me. So first up, to continue one of my favorite things, visiting hotels, we did stay in what is considered the most haunted hotel in SF. It is one of the most haunted hotels in California, apparently, and that is the Queen Anne. The Queen Anne is a Victorian-style hotel that was originally opened up as a school, I want to say in like 1870, 1880, I forget. I read the whole info packet they put in the hotel and I don't even remember now. But it was opened as a girls' like finishing school. It was opened by like a high society politician, I believe, so his daughters had a place to go, and it was run by a lady named Miss Mary Lake. Miss Mary Lake is supposed to be the ghost who haunts the hotel. She has her own suite that we went and saw. I got to like peek in at one point when they were cleaning it, but we did not get to stay there. We stayed in room 404, which for all intents and purposes is not haunted. But yeah, so it was originally opened as a school and several years later converted into a 4-star hotel. I absolutely adored this hotel. It was one of the most breathtaking and beautiful hotels I have ever been in. When you first walked in, you're greeted in this beautiful lobby that leads into this amazing common area where we would have breakfast every single morning with these sprawling fireplaces and these beautiful chairs and these ornate tables and these gorgeous lamps. There was a piano. I mean, it was absolutely breathtaking. There are stained glass windows all over the building. There was one right by our room. There were stained glass windows in the staircase that were like illuminated by lights. It was really cool, and all of them had a theme of hummingbirds, and it was just absolutely magical. We did get a suite that was just as beautiful as the rest of the hotel, the sprawling hallways, and I absolutely adored it. I will say, unlike the Stanley, I do not believe the Queen Anne is haunted, or at least I didn't experience any kind of hauntings. From what I've heard, though, Miss Mary Lake is actually the only ghost who is believed to haunt the hotel. And she's also only supposed to be seen, I believe, in her suite, which used to be her office, as well as like wandering like the downstairs common areas. And she is known to be a very friendly ghost. People have reported her folding their clothes, turning down their beds, etc. So I was not in the Miss Mary Lake suite, so I did not actually experience anything. I didn't feel any kind of supernatural pull from the hotel, but it was beautiful. The staff was so accommodating, and I really enjoyed it. If I went back, maybe I would try and get the Miss Mary Lake suite, but as you all know, I do not like when I can intermingle with ghosts. That kind of bothers me, though at the Stanley, I'm fairly certain that hotel is haunted as hell. But yes, I did not experience anything at the Queen Anne, but it was a truly beautiful and amazing experience, and I highly recommend it. So then the first full day that we did in SF, we decided to actually rent a car and drive on down to San Jose, which is about an hour south. And the reason we wanted to do that is to tour the notorious Winchester Mystery House. So if you've not heard of the Winchester Mystery House, it is this insane sprawling mansion down in San Jose, California, that is famous for its absurd, bizarre, over-the-top, nonsensical architecture. And all of that is very true. The house was originally purchased by Sarah Winchester, who was the widow of the heir of the Winchester rifle dynasty, you could say. The Winchester rifle is the first like widely sold automatic rifle. I believe it could shoot 13 rounds before somebody was required to reload. If you've ever read the novel Dracula, there's an entire page where they talk about the practicality and usefulness of the Winchester rifle. And that was obviously a very famous novel way back in the late 1800s. So as you can see, the Winchester rifle kind of made its rounds through America. It's supposed to be, like, I believe it's either the gun that won the West or like the gun that won the Civil War. I believe it's the gun that won the West. Anyway, as the legend goes, Sarah Winchester purchased this house, which was originally, I believe, an 8-room farmhouse on like all of these acres of land, and she immediately began construction on the house. And then throughout her life, she continued construction. She never really had any visitors over, and she always had workmen there 24/7. They pretty much lived on the property. And all of her architectural designs didn't quite make sense. They were constantly changing, evolving, being forgotten, like just completely all over the place, and nobody actually really knew or understood why. So this legend developed. And a lot of people believed that Sarah Winchester was being haunted by the ghosts of the men who had been killed by the Winchester rifles. And they thought that as long as she continued to build the house, she would not be caught by the ghosts and face an untimely death. Other people believe that the house was built in such a weird and wacky way to either inhabit or confuse the ghosts. Now, the legend's a little strange, and there's a lot of different variations on it. And after visiting the house, I definitely think differently. So when you first get to the house, it is just as strange as it sounds. Like, it really is a very unique experience. It is beautiful. But there are, in fact, stairs that lead to nowhere. You walk through a lot of, like, strange cupboards. You have to take 7 turns on one staircase to go up one flight of stairs. Just a bunch of strange, unpractical, nonsensical architectural designs. There is a door that opens into a drop that falls directly into the kitchen below. There's another door that opens to a 13-foot drop to the outside from the 2nd story. Just a lot of very, very strange things. But a lot of that, I believe, came from Sarah's own personal desire to be an architect and to have a hobby. So back in that day, Sarah was absolutely one of the wealthiest women in America. She was completely loaded. But women could not be architects, and she really, really admired the Freemasons. And there's a lot of architectural designs and quotes to kind of affirm that she was a very, very big fan of the Freemasons and different types of architecture at the time. So since she actually didn't primarily live in the Winchester house for a lot of her life, a lot of people believe that it was kind of just her passion project. And yes, when you walk in on the tour, the first thing you see is the staircase to nowhere. And you will see all of the doors that lead into weird, bizarre, and wacky places. But there's kind of reasons, and they're actually quite practical behind a lot of these things. And the first thing is the staircases. As Sarah got older, I believe she died around 71, she developed really bad arthritis and had a really hard time walking. So she converted a lot of staircases into almost ramps. But again, in these Victorian houses, there was kind of confined spaces. So instead of making just a ramp or a steep ramp, she made these kind of winding little baby stairs. And all of the stairs are like just like an inch or two tall, so she would have ease walking up and down them. And then she kept other staircases for servants who might need to run up and down stairs a lot faster than she did. She was very into her privacy, so she has a lot of rooms that only she really knew how to access, which is why some rooms you will enter through like cupboards and stuff, the most famous being her seance room, which has 3 entrances or exits, as you can say. One that was right off her bedroom that she would enter through, one that was the drop into the kitchen sink down below, and the other which was more of a secret passage, which was kind of a hidden bureau that would take her to other areas of the house. And I feel like that room was definitely there for her own personal privacy, and she is rumored to have spent hours every single night in that room. We're not entirely sure what she was doing in there, and obviously people believe that she was conducting seances to either speak to the ghosts that were allegedly haunting her house, or to her her former husband, her lost child, her actually a vast majority of her family had unfortunate and untimely deaths, so a lot of people think that she was contacting them. But it seems more likely that she was probably just meditating and having her own private time with herself. Whether she was conducting seances or contacting the spirit world shouldn't really matter in that case. She was also really, really superstitious, it seems. A lot of things are done in 13s. There's 13 bedrooms. A lot of rooms have 13 windows. There are 13 orbs on the stained glass that she designed as like her signature piece of stained glass in the Winchester. So yes, there could be superstitions, or that could just mean something to her. The house is really interesting because a lot of it is unfinished and a lot of it is very finished. So there are parts of the house where you have these sprawling dining rooms, you have these beautiful parlors, these grand entrances, and then there are other parts of the rooms that are just very, very empty and still in the process of being built. You also have these amazing greenhouses inside of the Winchester, and that's because she loved plants. So the house, really, the more you learn about Sarah, is definitely more a house for her than I believe it is for anybody else. And I feel like this woman was definitely a very, very private woman. Perhaps she didn't want other people coming to visit her in this house that is so personal and private to her. And she did a lot of really interesting things. She was very into designing like stained glass windows. She is notorious for putting spider webs and a spider web design up. There's some very, very famous ones that I got to go and see. There is, I believe, the Daisy Room, which is the room that she was actually trapped in the 1906 earthquake, that has these beautiful daisy flowers and these beautiful daisy stained glass windows. And the room that she was trapped in during the 1906 earthquake is still very, very unfinished. But the 1906 earthquake might actually be why a large part of the house is extremely strange, because it destroyed about 2.5 stories of the house. The house originally was 7 stories tall, and after the earthquake dropped down to about 4. So a lot of people think that some of the oddities were because a lot of the construction on the house was demolished in a very untimely, unwelcome fashion. Most notably, this could explain the door to nowhere, which is right off of the Daisy Room that she was stuck in. It's also, in my opinion, the coolest thing in the house. I don't know why I find it so interesting, but you can see it both from the inside and the outside, and it's just absolutely bizarre. But it was really, really cool. So do I think the Winchester is haunted? I spoke to the tour guide afterwards, and we kind of both felt the same, that the rumors of the ghosts haunting Sarah that were causing her to build this house seems a little over the top and hysterical, from the onlookers who were always trying to get into the house but were never granted access. However, a lot of people say that to this day the house is haunted by the former workers that Sarah hired and Sarah herself, and that a lot of the workers were so well treated and so highly paid and loved working for the Winchester estate that they stayed on and continue to make repairs to this day. The one tour guide I talked to seemed very adamant that that was the only ghost haunting happenings going on. And then I did some research online, and a lot of former tour guides seem to feel the same way. Again, I felt no negative presences when I was there. I never felt uneasy, so I don't know if I would say that the Winchester was haunted, but it is beautiful. It is an architectural anomaly, and it's absolutely stunning. If you can get to the balconies and see the roofs of the building, it is just so absolutely breathtaking, and I highly, highly recommend checking the Winchester out. It's got a fascinating history, and it is absolutely a joy to walk through. There's like 160 rooms. I think on the tour you see about 110, and it is just incredible. So the last thing that I did, haunted-wise, while we were there, is I did go back to SF, and we did go to Alcatraz, the very famous federal prison. Alcatraz is very, very interesting. So it is actually a national park, which I was not aware of, and you just pay to get on the ferry. And so we took the ferry out there. You get these beautiful views of the Golden Gate Bridge, and you pull up to Alcatraz, and you were immediately greeted by a bookstore, which is really just like a gift shop. And there's a couple gift shops throughout Alcatraz, but it was unexpected, I will say, to have gift shops and bookstores right as you were greeted. Again, Alcatraz is an island. It is, I believe it was originally a fort, and then afterwards was converted into a federal prison. From what I understand, to be sent to Alcatraz, you had to commit a crime, be sent to a state prison, and then be a problem in that state prison, and then get sent to Alcatraz, which is believed to be an inescapable jail because it is on an island in a bay with really rough, shark-infested waters. And no one has ever survived or come forward from an escape attempt to really validate if it is possible to escape from Alcatraz. And it's had some really, really famous, notorious prisoners. Most notably, I would say, is Al Capone. So when you first get to Alcatraz, you are greeted by the gift store and then have to take a little bit of a hike up. So you take this hike up this rocky hill, and you will see a bunch of abandoned buildings. On your right, you've got like a firehouse, I believe. You've got like a common hall, and then you make a turn. You can either go up to the cell block, or you can go around to where like the workhouse and the laundry houses were. So we did that first, which is now currently been converted into an exhibit to commemorate when Native Americans occupied Alcatraz, I believe in the late 60s and early 70s. I'm not 100% sure of the dates. I believe it's 69, which was a completely fascinating fact that I had no idea happened way back when, in protest to the American government taking over Native American land. Native Americans decided to take over government land, which is pretty cool when you think about it. But in there you will see a lot of information on kind of what the daily life of prisoners was like, what their work life was like, and kind of the beginning of prisoners being allowed to work for wages in jail. And they have a whole exhibit on that. You're kind of just in this big empty warehouse. And once you get through that, you can walk back around up to the cell block. And this, to me, was the most interesting part of this tour. And you kind of go through what the prisoners would have experienced. It's not necessarily a traditional tour. You kind of get like a little iPhone speaker thing, and it tells you where to walk and what's going on. So just like an audio tour that's self-guided. But you initially walk through the showers and where they would check in and hand over all of their possessions and be given their prison garb and shoes, take a shower, and then walk up to their cells. Now, Alcatraz is actually a lot smaller than I thought it was. It's really just, I believe it's 4 rows of cells, and then it goes up 3 stories, and that's it. And again, it's had some very notorious prisoners, it's had very notorious escape attempts, and yet it is just very small. And I was really, really stunned by that. So you walk through the cells and you will see Broadway, which is the main cell block. You will see solitary confinement, which is extremely depressing. You can actually go into some of the solitary cells. You can even go into the standard regular cells. You can go to the visiting rooms. You can go into the dining hall. You can go into the recreation field. And just all of these really, really cool areas of Alcatraz. Again, it is very, very small, so you can do this tour in about an hour, maybe 2, of the entire island. But for me, the most interesting part of Alcatraz was learning about the escape attempt. And they have the cells where the infamous escape took place on display, and then you can actually see through the walls at one point to see like the vents that the prisoners escaped from. So I actually went down to City Light's bookstore while I was in SF, and I picked up this book by J. Campbell Bruce on the escape attempts from Alcatraz. And it's going to primarily focus on the Frank Morris escape, which is the one that I just referenced. Him and 2 brothers whose names I do not remember. So it's going to primarily focus on the Frank Morris escape attempt, but I believe it does talk about all 14 escape attempts that have happened from Alcatraz. But the Frank Morris, I think, is the most interesting. Again, for those of you who do not know, Frank Morris and 2 of his friends, they were brothers, I forget their names, I will post them here, escaped supposedly from Alcatraz. They at least got off the island by basically digging holes through the vents in their cells, then climbing through the vents up onto the roof, down off the roof, onto the like lighthouse rocks on the island, and made like makeshift rafts out of, I think, raincoats, and either were lost at sea or made it and were never heard from again. And it is still highly debatable whether they did, because no trace of them has ever been found. And I find this absolutely fascinating, and there's so much that went into their escape. There's all of this belief that many of the prisoners knew, that 2 other people were supposed to join them, that wardens were in on it, guards were in on it, religious figures were in on it. There's so much speculation about this case, and I think it is absolutely phenomenal, and a large part of the Alcatraz tour focuses on that, and you really get to see how they escaped. I mean, they made paper mache heads to confuse guards. There was so much attention to detail, and I really, really, really want to learn more about that because I just found it fascinating. So once we did the cell block tour, we just kind of looked at like the scenic moments of Alcatraz and then headed back to the ferry. But Alcatraz was absolutely beautiful. I love that we had free reign to walk wherever we wanted. I love that we got the historical audio tour to guide us throughout the cell block. There was so much history. And they talked about a lot of really, really famous prisoners who were in there as well. I know I mentioned Al Capone. Creepy Carpus was in there. I believe that was his name. Machine Gun Kelly was in there. There was a lot of really, really famous prisoners who were in Alcatraz who have this insane history of being there. And there's still to this day inmates who were in Alcatraz who have since been released, who can come and talk about it. And when you're on the audio tour, it's told through the eyes of guards who used to work there, as well as prisoners who were confined there. And I think it's absolutely fascinating. Now, unfortunately, because there were so many people filling Alcatraz, I do not know if I got any ghost vibes from Alcatraz either. I feel like I went on this big haunted tour of San Fran and have no ghost experiences to share. But I do have a lot of historical facts now about some really, really amazing buildings. And the history behind all 3, the Queen Anne, Winchester Mystery House, and Alcatraz, I thought was all fascinating and absolutely worth it. And while I had absolutely no ghost experiences whatsoever, they are all 3 very well-known haunted places. So if you are still in the mood to ghost hunt, I would definitely recommend going there. And just one last thing, because I always have to do this, but I did have to go to the Alcatraz gift shop. I went to the Winchester gift shop and I didn't love it. It was a lot of just weird California tchotchkes and nothing like super Winchester focused. But I did get this cute little Escape from Alcatraz pen that I really, really like. And to add to my key collection, I did get a replica key of one of the, I believe this was the cell house key, like the overall cell house key. This was pretty famous in an escape attempt where a group of prisoners actually overpowered a guard, got these keys, and then tried to let all of the inmates escape, and that failed because they couldn't get this particular key to unlock the door they needed to. I do have my other haunted key right here. This is a replica of the key to the Stanley Hotel's 217, and I figured it would be worth adding an Alcatraz cell block key to the collection. So I think that might be a new thing that I do, is get replica keys of haunted places that I have visited. But yeah, so that is all that I have for my haunted tourism trip. I know this was a little jumbled and all over the place, but just wanted to share where I went, what I did, what I saw, and absolutely recommend all 3 of these places to you all if you are in California and want to do something cool and potentially very, very spooky. Anyways, thank you all for watching. As always, I post every Monday and Thursday, sometimes on Saturdays. If you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe buttons down below, and I will catch you all in the next one. Mwah.